Hello and welcome to our show, Crooked Doctors. Today is Friday, October 12th,
Yes.
2012.
Yes, it is.
And let me just turn down the music here. Okay. And let me just turn this down a little bit. Okay, so thank you for coming.
You're quite welcome, Lydia.
We may or may not have an extra guest in the studio because I think he's delayed.
It sure is.
What with the bad weather and
Traffic.
But if not, he'll be here next week.
Sure.
So, and we'll just get on with the important announcement that we have to make. And the important announcement that we have to make is that I won.
Lydia won, and she has a roof over her head.
I won my appeal in landlord-tenant court.
It's appeal. Oh, yeah.
And you know what? I'm going to bring up Dan Carrow, as you know, is my roommate.
Was a roommate. Yeah.
Was my roommate at 651 West 112th Street. This is in Washington Heights.
Sure.
And he illegally changed the locks on this rent-stabilized apartment. So he committed a crime.
Yes, he did.
And I went into landlord-tenant court with Judge Brenda Spears. Judge Brenda Spears fabricated, wholesale made up a ruling. In fact, let's look at Dan Carrow right now.
Let's take a look now.
Yeah, let's take a look at Dan. Because, let's see. Oh, here we go. I'm going to change the camera view so we can all look at Dan.
There he is.
Yep. This is Dan Carrow.
You have on camera there so people can see.
Yep, that's Dan Carrow, my roommate. And apparently, this is, he claims that he specializes in writing and directing.
Okay.
And, let's see, here's his bio. He was born in Newark, New Jersey. He started his life in film as an actor. While pursuing his acting career, he became keenly aware of the need to tell stories of people who are traditionally overlooked by the mainstream. Yeah, right.
Well, it's not all
In the spring of 2010, he decided it was time to become part of the solution. He enrolled in the MFA, that's Masters of Fine Arts program in Media Arts Production at CCNY, to acquire the skills to become a documentary filmmaker.
Okay.
CCNY is the college in our neighborhood. Okay, that's City College of New York. It's located at West 137th Street. Dan and I used to do marketing for Kaplan Educational Centers at CCNY. I was the marketing director for Kaplan Educational Centers in Manhattan, and CCNY was one of my territories, one of my schools. And Dan and I used to do marketing events because I helped Dan get a job. So this is Dan Carrow. And apparently in the spring of 2010, when he was enrolling in the Master of Fine Arts program at CCNY, he had a break in the action to lie to put me in prison.
Well, why, is there a motive? Why would he do that?
Apparently, he decided to do a roommate shuffle, and when he couldn't get what he wanted legally, he decided to commit a crime.
There you go.
So this is Dan Carrow. There's his email. You can send Dan, let's send Dan an email saying, hey, Dan.
What's his email address?
Right here. It's Carroways. Here you go, Dan. Here's some free publicity for you. It's Carroways@yahoo.com. Apparently, he came to M&N, this is Manhattan Neighborhood Network, where we're broadcasting, and took a class, and of course he's not going to show his face here because then he'd have to face me. Well, looks like he's got a job. He's worked as a grip and a director and a producer and a production assistant. Well, that's great.
That is
nice.
Yeah,
that's truly wonderful, Dan. So since I won my landlord-tenant appeal, and let me tell you how I won. Let's bring the camera view back to me a little bit.
Let's see how you won.
I won by default because Dan...
Pulled a no-show? Somebody pulled a no-show.
Dan was supposed to reply, but he didn't even bother making a reply. He's so embarrassed and so humiliated that he changed the locks on his roommate. I committed no harm against Dan Carrow. You know what I wanted? So Dan Carrow was supposed to reply in landlord-tenant. I got into landlord-tenant court with Judge Brenda Spears.
Pulled a no-show.
This is back after I got out of Rikers.
Right.
I tried to talk to Dan. I tried to talk to the superintendent. I went to the 34th Police Precinct. We'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
So Dan illegally changed the locks, and I go into landlord-tenant court in Manhattan with Judge Brenda Spears.
Yep.
And Judge Brenda Spears fabricated, wholesale made up a ruling.
She did.
Yes, she did. And this is the kind of threats that I've been living under. Any lawyer you go to, any judge you go to. So I had to get a pro bono attorney with a large nonprofit group.
Yep.
And they filed an appeal on my behalf. It took about a year, over a year.
That's what it usually takes, a year in landlord-tenant. Go ahead.
So the reason why they took my case, I wasn't really happy with the appeal, but I asked to speak to a supervisor, and I went to talk to the supervisor, and me and my attorney, and they said to me, Lydia, you think that we just take these cases, but there are literally thousands of people who ask us for help. And the reason why we took your case was because it was so egregious, because you were denied due process, because, the Judge Brenda Spears had this informal colloquy with you and fabricated, wholesale made up this ruling, didn't even bother having an evidentiary hearing, which is what Dan Carrow is very afraid of. Because then I get to confront him with his statements to the probations department. This is my pre-sentence investigative report. We talked about this earlier today, remember?
Yes, we did.
This is where, right here on page 3,
Page 3.
where it says...
Page 3, defendant interviewed, no. Defendant refused to interview.
So page 3 of my pre-sentence investigative report says I never talked to the probations department. And then on page 7,
I'll read that.
in order to defame me, on page 7 they say, well, I don't want you to read it, but we'll talk about it later. But it says, here's all the stuff she said.
Oh, my.
Okay, so page 7, the probations department says, Lidya Radin never talked to us. I'm sorry, let me correct that. Page 3 of my pre-sentencing investigative report, they say, Lidya Radin never talked to us. Page 7, here's all the stuff she said. And all of this is defaming. Okay? All of this is defaming.
Well, the purpose is obviously to discredit you, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And you've had experience with this in your own landlord-tenant.
We have, and we'll talk about that. Go ahead.
Now, the name of the supervising probations officer is...
The name is Steve Seltzer.
Steve Seltzer is so grossly incompetent as a probations officer that he doesn't know whether they talk to me or not.
Wow.
This is your city government, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, this is garbage. The pre-sentencing investigative report was deliberately kept from me.
Wow.
And in the sentencing transcript, I'm standing there in front of Judge McLaughlin. These are the crooks, quacks, and shysters.
Crooks, quacks, and shysters. I had to get that down. Go ahead. You're right.
In our neighborhood in Manhattan. And I'm standing in front of Judge McLaughlin and my then privately paid attorney, Michael J. Redenberg. Oh, let's get a photo of him.
Did he double-cross you?
Michael J. Redenberg's job was to lose my case.
Okay. Well, why? Or is it speculation? Or
no, he deliberately lost my case.
Well, he lost your case, but do you want to speculate why?
Because 3 steps behind me is Yeshiva University, and I caught them
lying
in crimes.
Get into it. Right.
So, because the New York Jewish community doesn't like what I have to say.
Of course.
Only I don't know why they're so upset, because I personally think that's wonderful what Yeshiva's doing. Our tax dollars go to promote private religious education.
Yeah.
And
the separation of church and state?
No, it doesn't
apply to them?
No.
Oh.
Interestingly enough, it applies to...
It applies to the Catholic Church, but it does not apply to yeshiva, a Jewish institution. Now, why is that?
Well, that's what we'd like to know. That's why I went down to talk to...
Here's
a
boy,
caller.
Here we go.
Hello.
How are you, darling?
I missed you.
Hey, Ben.
How are you?
You've been doing pretty good by yourself. You got getting calls. You're always busy. You had your mother on this show there.
Oh, my mother. Yeah, she's a witness.
I would have loved to talk to your mother. I'll tell you that.
You know what else is really wonderful? Alan Raskoff, who's a legendary gay activist, is also a witness because in 2006, Alan Raskoff and Javon Paddyar drove up to Albany. My mother was there. Robert Cross was there. We had a meeting with Cheryl Fisher, the supervising attorney at the State Guarantee Agency. This is the agency that I paid to make sure that what happened to me wouldn't happen.
That's right.
So Alan Raskoff gave me an affidavit. He's not afraid of Yeshiva University, and he's very concerned. He was fighting for the rights of students. Yeshiva University fraudulently induced us into enrolling in their medical school, claiming that they were non-denominational, when in fact they're an overtly...
Well, the reason was they wanted diversity. Is that correct? And you were the diverse Gentile or something?
Yeah, and Javon Paddyar would have been fine. They need diversity in order to show...
the government.
Yeah, in order to keep the public money coming in. If they had been honest and just said, look, we're an Orthodox Jewish school, I would have said, thank you so much, I've got offers to go. And the same thing with Javon Paddyar. If they had been honest and said we're an Orthodox Jewish school, Javon Paddyar would not have come out of the closet.
Sure.
As long as he was in the closet, the Javon Paddyar's problem was he's a gay man, and he came out of the closet in medical school, and he was told that students of your type are not welcome.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate that ultimately he sabotaged his case. But in 2006, Alan Raskoff accompanied Javon Paddyar, and one of the things he said to Cheryl Fisher was, look, these students are having their lives ruined. There's no fair hearings at this school.
Sure.
These students were deceived into attending this school. And Alan Raskoff gave me an affidavit.
Yeah.
So by 2006, at least, when I turned, and this is what my mom's saying, yes, I remember we drove up to Albany. In fact, I think the receipts may have been put on credit cards, so there's another piece of evidence.
Sure.
Yeah, there you go. Our credit card receipts for the tolls and the gas up there. Marlene Abramova was in the car with me, as was Mike Tyberg. Right. So that shows that the Albert Einstein College of Medicine had a retaliatory motive against me since 1996.
Yes.
Oh yeah, this has been going on for a long time. What do you?
Yes.
Let me say, isn't your birthday like next week or today or yesterday or something like that?
How would you know when my birthday is?
You got a birthday right around now.
Facebook. You went on Facebook.
No, I don't. I deliberately don't go on Facebook because I don't want people to know who I know.
Well, someplace.
But how do you know it's my birthday?
Right, I know.
Check.
Oh, you know how
actually,
I know?
I don't want to tell people my
Evil
birthday.
Harriet, when they did that investigation on you, they sent me that stuff.
Oh, the evil Harriet. Listen, the evil. Mr. Polinsky is in real.
Well, happy birthday anyway. I know you are.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I wanted to show you something. I won my appeal.
Yeah, I'm saying, but what did you get out of that then? Okay, she got the thing. You won by default or whatever.
Right,
so
she got a roof over her head.
Back in. No, you said...
It means that I have to be restored to possession. I asked for triple damages, so Dan is going to have to pay me triple damages.
Oh, wow.
And
he's got to get out of the apartment?
No. I was a roommate. I'm a legal tenant, and he has to let me back in. But what's interesting, and you're going to like this, is I'm going to change the camera view for a second. Sure. You're really going to like this because, wait, where did I put, yeah, here we go.
You should get Bill to move over until your guest show's there because it looks like your two of you are squashed in the corner.
Well, no, actually,
looks like he's trying to get fresh.
Well, we had a third guest.
No, we have a third guest.
Yeah, I understand that, but until he gets there, give us some breathing room, for Christ's sake.
Okay, so here you go.
Bill's got a new suit, too, huh? How you doing?
He wants to know how you're doing.
Oh, how am I doing?
Yeah, you got a new
suit. Ben. Very good. We got some good news for you at a later date. All right.
Oh, yeah. Well, Bill won his case, and his case is plugging along.
And I have a roof over my head.
These are the names. I went down to the 34th Police Precinct, and on Sunday, July 24th, 2011, with a witness. And these are the police officers that I talked to.
How many? 6?
6. Wow. Sergeant O'Donnell, that's his badge number. Officer Rodriguez, 34th Precinct. Officer, I'm going to mispronounce this. How do you pronounce this? Hidalgo?
Hidalgo.
Say that for us.
Hidalgo.
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 Yes, H-I-D. Hidalgo.
And on Monday, it's between 7 and 8
You know
o'clock.
what Hidalgo means in Spanish?
With the
Nudnik.
what does it mean?
Nudnik.
Nud-
He's a good guy. He's a good cop.
No, Mr. Polinsky called me a nudnik. Well, we'll get to Mr. Polinsky in a minute. Here we go. And then this is on Monday between 7 and 8 in the morning. This is July 25th, 2011, with witnesses. I go back to the 34th precinct, and look, there's Officer Johnson, and that's his badge number, and Officer Moore. And then I went to Sergeant McHugh at the desk, and the front desk at the 34th precinct, they took my rent receipts.
Was your name on the lease?
No, we were going into a lease signing. Dan signed his lease in May of 2008. I moved in on or about October 22nd, 2008. And Dan, I can show through circumstantial evidence, has been in contact with people who tried to hurt me in Jersey City, like Asaf Rosenheim and Judge Falcone, and he deliberately falsified landlord-tenant records to try to pretend there was an eviction on October 1st, 2000.
What did he want you out for? You were a lousy roommate?
No, Dan just wanted to do a roommate shuffle. He thought that if he traded his rent-stabilized apartment, which had an affordable rent, to a guy named Stace Gaddy, that Stace Gaddy would help his career. But, you can't, I had been living in the apartment for almost 2 years, so you can't do a roommate shuffle by, he couldn't evict me
Were
legally.
you writing a check to him every month?
No, I wrote a check to the landlord every month, and I got my receipts.
See?
Oh, you did? That's good.
Yeah, and Sergeant McHugh at the front desk at the 34th precinct.
What was that, for half the rent? What kind of a check did you send them? Half the rent?
My half of the rent. I don't know what Dan was doing, but the first year we lived together to share the expenses in the apartment, we were hauled into court a couple times, and the landlord and I said, I don't know what the problem is. I always pay my half of the rent and my half of the bills, and I was instructed by the landlord's agent.
Switch the camera thing back.
Oh, I was
Staring at this piece of paper here.
Well, what I want to show
I
here.
something broke on the TV.
Well, what I want to show here is that after I got out of Rikers and Dan could not evict me illegally because I won the first frivolous eviction that Dan effected. I won out of prison. I won out of Rikers Island.
You were sending in rent checks while you were in Rikers?
No. He tried to evict me. That's why he lied to the probations department.
How anybody would try to evict you is beyond me. The guy must have balls like grapefruit. To try to evict you of anybody from anything,
What does
it's
Vince
going to be a
say, Randy?
lifelong thing in courts and writs and paper.
Ben, my lawyer, Vince Sanchetti, is truly impressed with Lydia and her acumen that she's
I wouldn't
well
give her
versed in the
parking
law.
tickets.
Well, I get a lot of help. It's a team effort.
Right.
Okay, it's a team effort, so I don't want to take all the credit.
All right.
But here's the thing. He tried to evict me, and it didn't work, and I won the case while I was in Rikers. By the way, I won another case in Rikers, too, and I made history with that case. So I was helping the inmates with their cases.
Yeah.
After I got out of Rikers, I go to Judge Brenda Spears. Let's all know that name. If you're in Manhattan and you're in landlord-tenant court,
Here it is.
avoid Judge Brenda Spears like the plague. The reason why the nonprofit group took my case was because apparently Judge Spears had denied another person. She was reversed on another case. And they took it very seriously that I was denied due process of the law, which is why they took my case, they took the appeal. We were prepared to fight.
Didn't your landlord back you up that the checks were coming to him?
I had the landlord, this didn't involve...
I mean, how could they...
This is not involved, that's another issue. Dan had no standing to evict me. I don't pay rent to Dan. And Dan doesn't own the building. He got this stupid argument from a guy named Asaf Rosenheim.
Okay.
Asaf Rosenheim is ex-military Israeli, and he tried this stupidity out in Jersey City.
You don't do well with the Jews, do you?
There's one group of people who's not going to... the Orthodox Jewish students called me and asked me for help, and I stood up for them, and I'm the one who's taken the hits for them. So,
The
and the
Orthodox
bottom
have done
line...
you wrong many times.
And you know, the bottom line is when I started talking about the Bob Jones University case, I'm like, look, that was a witch hunt, because there are no victims of Bob Jones University. It's a purely theoretical argument. By the way, Bill wanted to share a piece of information because I was called a white racist cracker unfairly because I started telling the truth about the double standard on an institutional level between Yeshiva University and other schools. Bob Jones University had their tax exemption revoked.
Yes.
It was a purely theoretical argument. There were no victims of Bob Jones University. It was a witch hunt by the federal government.
Yes.
They lost their tax exemption so that the donors would be scared off.
Right.
Well, Yeshiva University has been found to discriminate on the basis of religion. I'm tripping over victims left and right. Orthodox Jewish students are calling me the big anti-Semite, asking me for help.
Yeah.
And because I started telling the truth and I went to Washington and I talked to elected officials, this is not fair.
Yeah, like Grassley, you almost got...
Yeah, you know, but, and Senator Grassley.
I love that video. That was a good one.
No, but, you know, Senator Grassley, you know, I mean, you're supposed to be a very strong senator, and you hold president's feet to the fire. So, you know, after I had my letter delivered to the Bush White House and didn't get an appropriate response, they defamed me as being unpatriotic. That's not true.
Well, how are you going to get this guy to pay the damages now?
Well, I have a plan for that, but I'm not going to discuss that on air. But because I championed, because I started telling the truth about Bob Jones University, I was derided as a white racist cracker.
Yes.
And because Bill's here and he
Actually used the word cracker?
Yes. At Rikers Island.
If anybody should be racist against the Jews,
they called me a white.
They
called me an anti-Semite. And Reverend Sharpton was like, hey, you know, when I criticize the Jews, they call me an anti-Semite. You know, Jimmy Carter's been called an anti-Semite. As far as I'm concerned, she's in damn fine company. You know, she's not an anti-Semite just because she tells the truth, as we know the truth.
That's right. If you're telling the truth, it's not
anti-Semitic. Right. You know, we have Jews that criticize Israel for human rights violations. That's not.
They're not all on board. I understand.
Right. And so what they do is they get criticized. They're
by their own people. Yeah.
They're defamed as, you know, self-hating Jews. They're not self-hating Jews. They're just telling the truth, and Israel doesn't like that truth. But because Bill's here, we were called white racist crackers. Bill, you want to?
No. What she's referring to is, well, my wife happens to be a Jamaican, a black woman. And certainly we'll have a picture up here as time goes on. I don't see, she wants to discredit the naysayers here who use this, who use the R word and that terminology.
How long have you been married?
The R word?
10 years. And
What's
she's a
the
black
R
woman
word?
and a Jamaican. So I'm sure that I'm not, can't be accused of that. And, and I'm in cahoots with Lydia. So what's the problem?
Yeah, certainly Bill Doherty is not a white racist cracker. He's been married almost 10 years to a black Jamaican woman. And Dawn is a wonderful person, by the way.
Thank you.
She did great in her landlord. They tried to put her through the mill, but she did great.
Well, we'll have that on the show too, Ben.
It was something, isn't it?
So what I'd like to show is Bill's, plus she's younger too. I'd like to show your wedding picture.
Well, we could do that.
That's got to be
we'll
cute, don't you think?
Somewhere.
I can't wait to see your wedding picture. So the bottom line is I was called a white racist cracker. I'm not. You know, long before I got into this fight when I was working for Kaplan Educational Centers.
Sure.
Oh, that's right. I'm such a big racist that I was working for the Kaplans at Kaplan Educational Center. Oh, right. I'm such a big anti-Semite that I was doing my research at Long Island Jewish Medical Center, where I was trying to publish papers so the department I worked for would do well. You know, that's what a big anti-Semite is. Oh, I'm such a big anti-Semite that an Orthodox Jewish woman called me and said, listen, can I name you as a witness? Sure. I'm such a big anti-Semite that Mike Tyberg, you know, and I went down, and I'm the one fighting with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office saying, you know, this nice Orthodox Jewish, oh, by the way, Mike Tyberg and I had lunch with Rabbi Marcus. Because when I was trying to help Mike Tyberg, because Rabbi Marcus was helping Dr. Lander at Torah College. And when Torah College maintained false business records, they collected up the evidence, they went down to the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, to Robert Morgenthal's office, and they turned in the culprits, and they cleaned their own school. Don't you wish Yeshiva University would? And, when I was talking to Rabbi Marcus, he's a Zionist, I said, we're going to disagree. He's like, we could fight about Israel later. Let's just talk about the falsified business record.
Let's talk about your case.
Yeah.
And what about, so, all right, I'm all over the place here. So you don't want to discuss about how you're going to get money from this guy?
Dan?
What I just say? Don't they give you like some kind of court order that you serve on him or something?
Well, I'm discussing that with my attorney now because the clerks at the appeals court are having great good fun jerking me around. My criminal appeal is in the same court with my landlord-tenant appeal.
Okay.
Now,
and what is your original damages? If you get the treble damages, what's the original damages? How much?
Well, Dan is going to have to replace the clothes that he threw out. He's going to have to replace my watch, my briefcase. He's going to have to pay for the hotel room that I had to stay in for a few weeks when I got out of Rikers. There was furniture I had in that apartment. I mean, I'm going to have to sit down and make a list of all the things he has to replace.
List,
And if he doesn't have the money, well, apparently he has a job. I don't know who would hire him because, Dan, incredibly stupid. Incredibly stupid.
Where'd you meet this guy?
Pardon me? Oh, we were friends. We worked out together at our gym was the YMCA, and we had worked out together and knew each other from the gym where we had worked out. And there was a point where and we'd known each other for years. We were regulars at the gym. We'd have coffee. We'd talk. We had a circle of friends. And one of our friends actually knew more details about my suit against Yeshiva University and was trying to be helpful. And there came a point where Dan was always working these long-term temporary jobs, and it was starting to work against him because he couldn't get a permanent job.
Exactly.
And I said, okay, so what you really need is to have a permanent job for a year or two, so you can take that argument away.
For his resume, as it were.
Well, he was trying to. He'd been working a lot of temporary jobs when he was trying to do an acting career, which never went anywhere.
Right.
So I was like, look, you're personable. You have good customer service skills. You're not interested. He fit in well at Kaplan. I'm like, you're not interested in making this company your career.
That's right.
You just want to come in and be a Kaplan student.
You got him a job at Kaplan?
I got him a job at Kaplan.
Oh boy, unbelievable.
Well, no, actually, there was a hiring process. I recommended him for hire. Yeah. He had to be interviewed by other hiring managers. So Andrew Lankler had to interview him.
And this is the way he repays you.
And this is the way he repays me.
Right.
I'm like, so when he was down in his luck and he lost his job, he worked at Kaplan for 5 years. Not only did I help him get the job, I recommended him for hire. I was one of the hiring managers, but there was a team effort. So there, Andrew Lankler, Susie Schauman, Christian Figueredo, Tom had to interview him, me. There were at least 5 or 6 hiring managers.
That's right.
He had to go through 2 or 3 days of interviews. Everybody had to say it was okay. I also, he used to do sales and marketing events with me. We did.
I can understand him. Okay, he wants to lock you out or something like that. But why did he let you go in there to get your stuff out of there at least?
He had no right to lie to probations, to put me in prison. That's, he wanted to do a roommate shuffle. He couldn't. He figured he was being opportunistic. He thought this guy Stace Gaddy could help his career.
So couldn't he just tell you, I want to do a roommate social shuffle, start looking for another apartment? Instead of just throwing you out?
But Dan knew my circumstances, and he knew that I was defending myself against false criminal charges against.
Lydia had a lot of baggage at the time, and that's what this guy took advantage of.
There you go.
He had emotional baggage and baggage in the apartment.
No, during the time he did this.
He had 2 kinds of baggage.
What he was doing was taking advantage of the fact that I was defending myself against false criminal charges by Yeshiva University,
right.
And so I couldn't look for an apartment. He knew that my credit rating for life had been damaged because the school committed federal student loan fraud.
I knew you couldn't get another apartment. That's what you're saying.
I could probably, but that's not something that I was going to focus on while I'm defending myself against criminal charges.
Sure, a lot of baggage.
And
Speaking about criminal charges, how'd that thing go about taking the photographs at the in the marshal's office?
Oh yeah, the marshal.
How's that coming along?
I sued in federal court, and because of a lawsuit in federal court that's going on right now, U.S. Marshal James Howard. admitted that I was never a threat to the life of a federal judge.
There you go.
I was never a threat to a judge, and that they would correct the record. So thank you, U.S. Marshal James Howard.
Thank you, Marshal Howard.
Oh, so there's no more. So you're no more static about that. About you and the camera there.
Well, what they did was, well, there might be. What they did was.
Even it might be.
Well, you know what they. Alex, come on in.
Alex, come
Our
on in.
guest is here.
Come on.
Come
Our
on
guest
in.
is
Hi.
here,
All right, go
Ben.
ahead.
Alex just arrived. Okay, here's just a reserved seat.
Here you go.
There you go. Well, so there's your mic.
That's okay. Here you go.
Hook up your mic.
Listen, Ben, there's
Yeah,
some.
I can't go. I want to go back. I got to go back and watch the Yankee game.
Good.
So.
No. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the NYPD Patrol Officer's Guide.
Sure.
And what the last 15, 20 minutes of the show we're going to devote to Alex. But we got about 10 minutes left. And what I want to show is, I want to show that there are.
Pretty good.
Oh, let me turn up your mic. Hold it. Say hello.
How's this working?
You sound.
Yeah, keep
Are you
talking.
okay?
Keep talking.
Not so good, but I have to be here.
Okay.
You sound
We'll
terrible.
keep talking and see.
Wait, don't talk for a minute. I want to make sure his mic is good. Alex, you sound terrible.
That's part of the case. That's one of the reasons I'm here today.
Ben?
Yeah.
What I'm going to show in about 5 minutes is the NYPD Patrol Officer's Guide, which shows that when I called the police to my apartment and said Dan Carrow refuses to let me in and he's changed the locks illegally, they were required to arrest him. They didn't. So what we have in our neighborhood, Alex Sanchez lives in Washington Heights, at the 34th Police Precinct, and you have friends at the 33rd
Yes,
and the
definitely.
3rd. At the 34th Police Precinct, we've got 6 police officers, 2 sergeants who are pretending that they didn't know that when when Dan Carrow changed the locks without a court order, that was illegal. When I called the police to the apartment twice with a witness, Dan Carrow was supposed to let me into that apartment, and if he refused, the police were supposed to arrest him on the spot. So, it's impossible to believe that 6 police officers didn't know what they were supposed to do. That's denial of equal protection of the law. And isn't it interesting
It is.
how continually the law doesn't protect Lidya Radin? That's not paranoid.
It doesn't apply to Lidya Radin.
How was Mrs. Povinetti? You've spoken to her lately?
Mrs. Povinetti's okay. I took care of her. She's, we got to go into court to do a few things, but she's okay. I should take a little film of Mrs. Povinetti.
Yeah, you should. But yeah, it's been a long time since we saw
We've
her.
seen Mrs. Povinetti.
Yeah.
But I should take a little. I'll ask her. I'll tell her if her fans are asking for her.
Yeah, she called me today. She said that Steve Phillips is hiding in her closet. She heard you were going to come by and visit.
Mrs. Povinetti is fluent in Spanish, so what I'll do is I'll have a little message for her. She'll say a little shout out to Brooklyn. Okay, Ben, listen.
Good luck. Happy
thank
birthday.
you so much for calling.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Okay.
I just want to show the parole officer's guide.
Let's put that down.
So I'm going to change the camera view,
Sure.
and then we're going to get to Ben. Okay, so these are the names of, and by the way, Sergeant McHugh was at the front desk, and he took my rent receipts for Officer Johnson. So these are the names and the badge numbers of all the police officers that I went to say, hey, my roommate illegally changed the locks. I'm keeping an eye on the time, don't worry. And I just want to show the police officer's guide really quickly. Here we go. This is the patrol. Is everybody looking at this? This is the patrol officer's guide, and this will take me about 2 minutes. Okay. So this is coming straight out of the NYPD patrol officer's guide. These are their procedures. This is the parole officer's guide, right? And I want to make sure. This is procedure 214-12.
Okay.
And they're supposed to protect, the purpose of this is to protect the rights of a person, namely me, who is being or has been unlawfully evicted from his dwelling unit. And what they're supposed to do, I can come back because I promised Alex some time so we can revisit this. But what they're supposed to do is, if you've been illegally evicted, you're reading over my shoulder, right, Bill?
Yes.
So changing the lock on an entrance door without supplying the occupant with a key. Okay, that's illegal. Do you see that?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so when Dan Carrow did that, that's an illegal eviction. And what was supposed to happen when I called the police? Well, the police were supposed to do this: effect an arrest.
Well,
that's what the police were supposed to do. They were supposed to say, you either let her in or we're going to arrest you. So they're supposed to effect an arrest where the violator refuses to permit the occupant to re-enter. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. And we'll get back to, I won my appeal.
Hey, congratulations.
I won my appeal to get my apartment back.
I'm really ecstatic today.
So
great news.
So that's good. Now, what we're going to do, it's 6:35, and we're going to devote the rest of the show to, by the way, the rest of the show to Alex.
Thank you so much.
No problem. And let me just set this up a little bit, because you know what I did is I pulled pictures, and I got, Alex is here today because we're going to devote a portion to our show with your permission.
Sure.
So every week until Election Day, Alex is going to take part of our show, and he wants to remind everyone to vote.
Yes.
But he particularly is very grateful to Congresswoman Maloney, and you very kindly introduced me to her. Am I pronouncing her name correctly?
Yes,
It's Maloney?
Carol B. Maloney, exactly.
She's been instrumental. In fact, she authored this, helped author, or did
She is the sponsor of the James Hidroga Jr. Act. And it's basically a legislation that will provide medical treatment and compensations to those afflicted by World Trade Center debris exposure.
So, what we'd like you to do is get out there and vote. But Alex is trying to, when the 911 first responders, you're a 911 first responder.
Yes, I am a 911 worker.
And you're with United We Stand. You know what I did to pull up? When we were at, when you gave Carol and Congresswoman Maloney, let me just change the camera view here. I pulled up her.
We presented an award on October 8th, and you were there, Lydia, and you've been
and you know what? It's on
so
her.
supportive. I couldn't do this without
It's
you.
actually on her website. Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Are you going to bring him back?
Here. This is, well, let me show you her website. This is Congresswoman Maloney. She's, she's she's a fighter. She's for women's rights. She's in a man's world, toughing it out. She certainly has my respect. I may not agree with her on every issue.
Exactly, because that's the beauty of our country. I mean, that's what makes this democracy great.
But she's been, this is her website. She's characterized as tenacious, a pit bull. She stands up for women.
That is her nickname in the United States Congress.
Really?
When I first met her, my first impression was, you look like a Greek goddess, and you have a brilliant mind. How come they call you the pit bull? But I knew the answer to my question, her tenacity and her love to, as a public servant, to those of us, we the people. It's really overwhelming.
Here, this was the event. This is on her, if you go to her website, this is her calendar of events. And I still have a film. Alex invited me. Here we go. United We Stand. Yep. They gave her an award. We were at Elmhurst Hospital. Alex was like, "Don't be afraid." I thought they were going to jump me. I was scared to death. But Alex is like, "Don't worry, we're all going to be here."
You're in good hands. United We Stand, and we're very much way out there.
So they had a event at Elmhurst Hospital, and I have really nice film. If I wasn't so busy dealing with the criminals in my case, that I would, what we wanted to do was work up the film and give it to Congresswoman.
Exactly, as a token of her appreciation towards her commitment to our community.
Yes.
Because a lot of people are mistaken, not only those who went to the pit, firefighters, police officers, labor, but we also have the residents, the children who went to school in the neighborhood, and those of us like myself who went into skyscrapers and performed cleanup. It's been a group collective effort since late 04, early 05, walking the halls of Congress.
So, what Alex wanted to do was say, okay, we want all of you to vote. It doesn't matter whether you agree or disagree. Alex, of course, wants to say thank you to Congresswoman Maloney. She was instrumental in helping the 9/11 workers get the Droga bill. So, of course, she's near and dear to your heart. I have a couple photographs of Alex with
Councilwoman?
right here.
Congresswoman. Yeah.
Here, this is Congresswoman
There she is. All right.
Maloney.
This is right after the Droga Act has become law of the land, and we were celebrating. This was for the last State of the Union address in Washington, D.C., where couple of hours before President Obama took the stage.
So whether you agree or not with the Congresswoman or the Democratic Party, we encourage you to go out and vote. And Alex, do you want to say this in Spanish?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Whenever you believe
Go
I'm
ahead.
ready. I would like to address your audience in English and then
Okay.
in Spanish. This way we can cover both worlds.
Well, you got 20 minutes. Knock yourself out.
Well, I am here today stumping for Congresswoman Maloney, but not only her. We have so many great ones in the New York congressional delegation, and we need those people in Congress. We have been faced with an obstruction in Congress. Actually, in the lowest rating ever, only 7% of those in our country very much agree with what Congress has been doing. Since late 04, early 05, Congresswoman Maloney and Congressman Jerry Nadler, at the time my junior senator Hillary Rodham Clinton, today Secretary of State.
Now, I should say this: we disagree. We disagree on certain elected officials.
Exactly.
You very graciously introduced me to Congresswoman Maloney.
Yes.
And even though I don't agree with her on every issue, the fact is she's a woman in a man's world, and she does a great job.
Yeah. And she's been in Congress for 18 years.
And she did right.
For herself.
Yeah, and she did right by 911 first responders, and so of course, the important thing is to get out there and vote.
Yes.
And
that
of
is
course,
main priority.
and you want to say thank you on behalf of the 911 to Congresswoman Maloney for her efforts.
Definitely.
And
not only that, we want to keep her in Congress because her initiative and her commitment to our community is very much something that we very much appreciate. Election day, she's going to be up for re-election once again. Mm-hmm. And like you mentioned, I'll be coming to your program every Friday till election day. And I am going to be stumping. And you know the way I feel about her. She's my fairy godmother.
I know you love her.
I was never involved in politics. And the way I see it, being a victim, you have two choices. You can go home or sit in your couch and mope and be angry at the world, or you can go out there and very much be participant in our democratic and political process.
Well said.
And this is what she has done for me. I was one of those who was skeptic about politics and politicians, but now I know for a fact that it's what our founding fathers had intended. We the people. But we need representatives out there that carry our voices, and that's what Carolyn has been for us for the past 8.5 years.
So there are some Democratic elected officials that I disagree with, so I don't want to say anything too much, but as long as you get out there and vote. I'm going to move back to Washington Heights, and so we're in the same. This is our neighborhood, and the most important thing is that people go out there and exercise their right to vote, whether you agree with an elected official or not, whether you have differences of opinion on certain issues. Exactly. When the Nassau County Civic Association helped me, we did not agree on every issue. Right. So what we did was we found common ground on the issues we could agree with. Right. I'd like to say thank you to
this is exactly what is lacking in our democratic process, political process right this minute. As soon as President Obama took office, we had our minority leader in the Senate say his main goal was to make President Obama fail.
A one-term president.
Excuse me?
He wanted a one-term president.
Exactly. and if those are your goals, that means that you very much do not want our country to go forward.
Sure.
Ronald Reagan, Tip O'Neill.
The people who found common ground.
This is what politics is all about. Going across the line and working on behalf of the American people.
I made the same argument in Jersey. Bill and I are trying to get a bill passed, a state law passed, for tenants to recover attorney's fees too. Yes. And everybody was worried because it's a big blue state with Chris Christie, the Republican governor.
Exactly.
And I was like, look, there's no way to be against this. And I made the argument for common ground. But what we want to do is, I'm going to change the camera view. If you want to say this in Spanish so that the viewing audience can.
Let me first say something in English.
Okay.
As a Hispanic, as a Latino,
Okay.
there's, I believe, 20 or 22 million Hispanics in the United States. Only 6 million of us go out there and vote. This needs to
Wait, tell me
change.
that again. How many people?
If I'm not mistaken, 20 to 22 millions of Hispanics in the United States. Only 6 million of us vote. This is something that needs to change because we are a growing population. And what we can understand from this is if we go out there and vote massively, you can vote for Romney or you can vote for President Obama. But let's be participant in our democratic process and understand how our democracy works.
Yeah. So, you want to say thank you to Carolyn Maloney. I'm going to show her website, and you can speak to the people of Washington Heights in Spanish.
Mi nombre es Alex Sanchez. Estoy aquí hoy gracias a la oportunidad que me ha dado la señora Radin. Estoy aquí porque estoy básicamente apoyando la reelección de la representante del Distrito 14, Carol B. Maloney. En el 2004, finales de 2004, 2005, ella nos da la oportunidad a mi compañero, mi asistente director, Manuel Checo, y a mí a ser partícipe en el proceso político y democrático de nuestro país. Necesitamos personas como Carol B. Maloney que sigan en nuestro Congreso. Ella es la que originalmente patrocina la ley Sadroga. La ley Sadroga es una ley que ampara a aquellas personas afligidas por la contaminación del 11 de septiembre. Yo soy respondiente de los ataques del 11 de septiembre. También soy director de Unidos Estamos, una organización sin fines de lucro. Básicamente somos dos ciudadanos que abogamos los pasillos, cabildeamos los pasillos del Congreso a favor de tratamiento médico y compensación para aquellas personas afligidas. Hoy en día es una realidad, pero necesitamos más. La ciencia de exposición nos enseña que se necesita 25 a 30 años de tratamiento médico. Solamente pudimos obtener 5 por la obstrucción que existe en nuestro Congreso. Nuestro Congreso tiene un aprobamiento de 7% a nivel nacional. Y hemos visto desde el primer día que mi presidente Obama se postula como presidente, hemos visto al líder de la minoría en el Senado decir que su objetivo sería de que el presidente Obama fuera presidente de un solo término. Una de las cosas que estaba discutiendo con la señora Radin es que necesitamos líderes que puedan cruzar al otro lado de la Cámara y trabajar en conjunto a favor de nuestro país. Nuestro país no puede seguir adelante si no básicamente aportamos y ayudamos a aquellos necesitados. Hoy en día tenemos un partido republicano que básicamente nos ha dado la espalda. En el 1941, cuando los ataques de Pearl Harbor, el Congreso dura menos de un año para enactar una ley a favor de aquellas víctimas que fueron puestas en riesgo por los ataques de Pearl Harbor. En nuestro caso, los ataques del 11 de septiembre cambian el mundo. Hoy en día el mundo no es igual. Ni la seguridad, ni la estabilidad económica que existe hoy en día. Entonces, esta póliza fracasante de un partido que nos lleva a pelear 2 guerras y hoy en día quieren básicamente alinear a nuestro déficit en la espalda de la clase media y los más pobres. Así no podemos seguir adelante. Necesitamos reelegir a líderes que verdaderamente sean la voz de aquellas personas, de nosotros los ciudadanos, como tenían en mente los fundadores de nuestra patria.
Can you remind everybody out there that the deadline to register to vote is today?
Today, exactly.
Today, in English and Spanish, and you can register online.
Hoy en día es el último día para registrarse, para votar. Pueden ir en línea, pueden ir a la Junta Central Electoral del Estado de Nueva York y básicamente apuntarse para votar. Es uno de nuestra obligación como ciudadanos. Y ahora me dirijo a mi comunidad latina. Habemos de 20 a 22 millones de latinos en nuestro país, en nuestra nación. Solamente salimos 6 millones a votar. Esto debe de cambiar. Necesitamos tener un compromiso con nuestro proceso político y nuestro proceso democrático. Y solamente podemos tener este compromiso cuando ejercemos el voto.
Okay, so what we'd like you to do is get out and vote. Today is the deadline to register to vote. You can register online. And Alex wants to say thank you to Congresswoman Maloney. You know, she hits me where I live too, because she's the first woman to do a number of things.
Exactly.
So she's very courageous. She's strong.
She sponsored a bill that would bring pay to those women who are on maternity leave. And I don't know if you watched the debate last night.
I did.
Very much front row center. And one of the things we missed, and I want to congratulate you because yesterday was Girls' Day, International Girls' Day. And I didn't hear, I heard about abortion and women's rights to reproduction. What I did not hear from both candidates, or from our vice president and our vice presidential candidate, was equal pay, equal right. And this is one of the things I applaud on behalf of President Obama. I mean, I was raised by women. He has 2 daughters, and I know he feels very strongly about this. We have come a long way as a nation. Just in the 60s, we were dealing with civil rights. And then after that...
We're still dealing with civil rights.
Exactly, but to another level in the 60s, we have made
We're still
somewhat of progress because I think
we made no progress.
So much more to be made.
Yeshiva University in our neighborhood, and in
Exactly.
West 188th Street, I was expelled in violation of my civil rights. I didn't have a fair hearing. This is why I'm coming to you, Alex Sanchez.
Yeah.
These are not abstract. These are not abstract.
The evidence, it's there on the table.
These are not. I mean, first you have to win your fight.
Exactly.
And but you know, eventually, what we need is our neighborhood organized, because Yeshiva University is in our neighborhood. You know, this is. You want to say something?
I think what both Alex and Lydia have to say is we've come a long way, yes. But we still have a long way to go. Exactly. Go ahead.
And so what I'm going to be looking for is, you know, Yeshiva University expels medical school students. Every medical school in the city expels medical school students in violation of their civil rights.
Without a fair hearing, because this was the topic of conversation we have had many times.
This is, you know, I'm going to be going to Congresswoman Maloney and asking her for help, saying, you know, this how can you be against this? This is like, and she was a lovely woman when
she is in my book the distinguished lady from the state of the Empire State.
You know, when I said hello to her and we asked her for help, she was like, "I'll be there for you." So I'm going to reach out to her and say, "This is unconscionable that every medical school student in the state of New York since the dawn of time." Has been denied their basic civil rights, and I certainly expect that if she can champion other causes, that she would champion this. We went to, this is why this is a little bit of a sore spot. We went to other Democratic elected officials like Jerry Nadler and presented the same argument, and they did nothing. So I'm very disappointed.
I'm very much surprised because Jerry, we share the same birthday, Representative Nadler and I, and this is another elected official that I believe he is a stand-up guy. But we're running out of time. Let me make a quick mention. Yeah. On September 11th, we got the great news that 50 cancers were going to be added.
I'm going to show her website
on the Sadroga. This is brilliant news. But right after that, we got some really bad news. 2010, the president and the Democratic Party and the Republicans came up with a deal in order to balance our deficit, and these cuts will be rolling in next year, January of 2013. What does that mean? What this means is that there's going to be $300 million in cuts for 9/11 responders and the medical treatment program.
Yes.
So this is something unheard of because, as I mentioned in the show numerous of times, every society honors and reveres those who go to the front line.
Sure.
We have been the exception, and that is not the country I want my 11-year-old to grow in. I am late today because I am part of the debate club with his intermediate school, and we're getting help from Columbia University. We have members of their debate.
Really, what is Columbia University doing for you?
It's basically teaching the children the proper ways
Who
of
at
debating.
Who at Columbia University is helping?
I don't know who, and we're going to get into those details.
Shame
after.
on you, Columbia University! Shame on you! You know.
They're doing a great job.
No,
with
they're
us,
not
so-
with me.
Okay.
Excuse me, Columbia University. Lee Bollinger's going to hate me.
Let me also mention that
Columbia University's medical school does not have a written, published,
what I like
faculty-approved
about her.
hearing procedure, and I went to President Lee Bollinger. I had to get Newark City Councilman, we're going to go to Newark, Newark City Councilman Darren S. Sharif set a standard of excellence for the world to follow. Don't you wish Lee Bollinger would? And I happen to be a graduate of Columbia University. Shame on you, Lee
honors
Bollinger.
graduate, by
An
the way.
honors graduate. Shame on you, Lee Bollinger. I come to the president of my alma mater and say to him, you know, I don't even know where to start, but we need a written, published, faculty-approved hearing procedure that fully comports with the spirit of the law. Yeah. And it's the professors that make law,
That's right.
not the dishonest attorneys. In a university, it's the professors that establish the standards. And at Columbia University, I expected better from them. But you know what? I'm gonna shut up now because we have 4 minutes left. And go ahead, Alex.
Let me also commend Dr. John Howard, who runs.
I know you love John Howard
the
too.
programs,
At
Centers
Mount-
of Excellence.
Let's go talk to Dr. Howard and say, Dr. Howard, at Mount Sinai, could you set an example of excellence for the world to follow?
This is basically has been our goal. I sit at the advisory board. As you know, we're running out of time.
Okay, go ahead. I'll shut up.
I want to bring this information out there. We're holding a press conference on the 15th.
Oh, right.
And it's going to be at 11:15 a.m., 7 World Trade. And what's going to take place there is John Field of the Feel Good Foundation, my mentor, has very much set up an organization called 9/11 Health Watch. What this organization does is very much is the watchdog to the Sadroga Act, meaning every provision in this law must be taken into account. And this is what the job of 9/11 Health Watch, and this consists with the AFL-CIO and other entities, the Feel Good Foundation, because as you know, the Feel Good Foundation has limitation when it comes to lobbying in Congress. And they made a great acquisition. They hired one of Carol B. Maloney, Chief of Staff in Washington, D.C. I don't have his name with me, and I apologize for that.
That's okay.
But this is something that we need to pursue. We are in an election year, and once again, I've been part of 3 elections already, 04, 08, and now in 2012. I am going to go out there and go on the limb and say it right off the bat. I will be voting for President Obama in November. Why? Because I believe our economy is getting much better. I know we have so much work to do, but I also know the travesty
This is just
that
before we go
has taken place
Right.
under the 8 years under the Bush administration.
This
I
is-
am not here to signal out a guilty party. What I am here for is to go move our country forward and very much get long-term medical treatment for those afflicted by 9/11 contamination. Once again,
We're out.
We're out?
Yeah, we're
Okay,
out.
all right.
But you know what? It's okay because you're going to be joining us. What we're going to do is whether you want to do the bottom of the hour or the top of the hour, we're going to give you the 15, 20 minutes every week, and
Okay.
and you're going to do the 9/11 Health Watch.
Let me ask you something. Do you have the video of the presentation of the award?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Oh, it's beautiful. I'm waiting to work it up. If I wasn't fighting.
I know, if you weren't so busy. You told me on Monday we can probably give it to her. Do you think you need more time? 'Cause I can always get-
you know what? I can if I don't do a great editing job,
Exactly.
I can say this is the unedited version.
There you go. We can
And
do that. Yeah, and then I can bring the edited version.
I'll
to her.
bring. I'll say I'll bring it to her. I'll bring her the unedited version.
I asked John to speak out on behalf of my community. I haven't heard from him. I know he's very busy, but it will be in my best interest if I can go out there and represent the cleanup workers.
You got something. You got something.
We don't have any